Welcome back to the BounceBack Leadership Show, where we talk about the importance of having that ability to bounce back from your setbacks. It's really important to be able to do that. I bounce back from my setback. I bounce back from my disability, the visual impairment, the speech impediment, the numbness down the entire right side of my body. I've been able to come back from all that in order to have a lasting impact on people's lives. And really that impact comes with knowing people like you. And I'm just so thankful that you've joined us here today. And you're coming to us in such a way that you understand how that bounce back is important. And somebody else that knows how important it is to be able to bounce back from his setbacks is our guest today. And that is none other than Colt Briner. Colt, how are you, man?
Awesome, Brian. It's great to be with you, brother.
It's so good to have you on. I appreciate you being on. I know it's early for you out there. On the West Coast, right?
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. Anyway, so thank you very much for that. So I guess, Colt, we're taking a different direction with the podcast.
Yeah.
The live stream, if you will. I really want to talk to you a little bit about your setbacks that you've had. So can you name a setback that you've had and how you've been able to bounce back from it?
Sure. Yeah. Well, when I got out of college, I started my own company. So this is based on a novelty product that I had come up with and that we were getting manufactured out of China. It was actually a company that I ran with my dad for a while. He was like, okay, let's do it together. And we ramped it up to like something like 10 or 12,000 units a month we were selling. And then we spotted our exact product being sold in the Oriental Trading Company catalog. But it wasn't by us. It was somebody else. And we, and that catalog is just, it's huge. And the price that they were selling it for, we weren't going to be able to make. So they, basically found our molds in China and they were making our product. And it was like, okay, well, that's it. We're done. That's not going to work now.
Wow.
And ultimately, yeah, we closed up shop. So that company didn't bounce back, but on a personal level, both my dad and I certainly did. Right after that, I started into what turned into a 21-year streak as a marketing executive that landed me where I am today. And I couldn't be more pleased with how things have unfolded. And my dad now works with his best friend from college with the winery that they have. That they make two different wine brands, and they have a sold out every year, a sold out wine subscription club. So I mean, it's just like, okay, there you go, on to the next, right?
There you go. I think they've bounced back. What do you think, people? So if you want to hear more, just stay right there. Wow. Yeah, you've really bounced back.
Yeah, it's a, like what, how life will unfold, impossible to predict. But I have such gratitude for the challenges. The challenges provide the contrast for the rewards. Every obstacle I've faced has set the background for every triumph.
Yeah, yeah. Now, tell me a little bit about disabilities, and if there are no disabilities that you're familiar with, that's okay. Do you have any internal or invisible or visible disabilities?
Huh. Uh, um, I think so. I don't have anything that people would identify necessarily as a physical or otherwise a disability, but it's interesting how something that I find people respect and admire about me is something that I actually regard as a disability. And let me describe it for you, which is people seem to think that I get a lot done, and just kind of have a deep well of energy to get after things. And okay, that's cool. I appreciate that. But really, where I'm at is I have a great capacity to be a human doing, but a limited, tremendously limited capacity I find to just be a human being. And what I mean by that is stillness is anxiety inducing for me, but it's the state that I seek, honestly. And people say, "Man, I just really admire your energy." It's like, well, okay, it's almost like one of those, tales about the wish that you wished, and then you got what you wanted, but it turned out to be not what you wanted. Because you can
Right.
have it, you could have it, but what it would really mean is that you just became uncomfortably anxious when you weren't doing something. So it's a disability to just find peace and calmness in moments, and to allow just being to happen. And I've been struggling with it for a long time.
Isn't that interesting? How that can be a disability.
Well, I mean, it's funny because we're talking about the values and moralities of our culture, of our society, and I mean, people just wouldn't think of it that way, but I mean, the ability to just be and find peace and stillness, I think it's a healthy, natural human capacity that somehow I'm having a difficulty accessing in my life.
Hmm. So for me, going out and sitting by a fire
Uh-huh.
and looking at the fire and just watching it and sitting there for hours, literally hours on end, that's something you don't enjoy.
Um, I can enjoy it for a short period of time, but then the anxiety comes. Honestly, it does. It's like, okay, well, there's a lot to get done, um, and you could probably be more productive with this time. That's just, and it's not like I have, just some uh, tyrant upbringing to harken back to, and like that's where it came from, or teachers that were terrible or whatever. I mean, I'm not actually sure where it comes from. I'd probably have to take a lot of counseling to uncover that. But
I think you and my wife are the same way because
uh,
she can't sit there.
yeah, yeah,
Strange. I think it's strange.
I do
Um,
too.
oh wow. This is interesting.
Hmm.
Um, you know. Hmm.
Oh, and I have my. So if there's one other thing that now just came into my head, I have my ankles are like glass, man. Both me and my brother, we just have. I could roll my ankle on a penny flat
Uh,
on the ground, and man, so I tried to help my son. He's really into basketball. He's excelled in basketball. He's now a junior, and he he was out in the backyard. We were practicing shooting some hoops. And I know it's like he was making every basket. I'm like, well, I was just returning the ball to him, right, just to help him,
mm,
to speed it up for him. But it was like, well, if you're making every basket, are you really practicing? So I like came up to stand in front of him, put my hands up, and was trying to give him at least some kind of an obstacle to deal with. And he was still making every shot. And I was like, all right, I'm going to have to start trying to defend the basket. So about 18 seconds later, I'm on the ground. go get your dad some ice, please, because I had just detonated my ankle, and it took no time. It was so bad.
So we've got some friends on here, and yeah, if you're listening in, please put in hashtag live and let us know where you're coming in from. That would be great to be able to see that. Also, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the chat. I'd love to have you do that as well. So that'll bring more to the community and make this a more fun and interactive discussion. So there's Tammy Mark. She has a comment. So she said, "Oh yeah, she's a hard for her to sit still as well." Yeah.
Yeah, it does drive people crazy. It's like if they're around you, there are a couple of things I see happen. If they're around you, they have this like, they wish to feel comfortable also in their stillness, but the energy that I deal with, I'll call it that I deal with in those spaces, makes that difficult for them. And sometimes that's like some people can take that on as I'm feeling like I'm not doing enough. Can you take that energy away from my space because you're making me feel like I'm not doing enough? But I know that I'm a person who does enough, and I feel they are too. It's like I could see that energy that I can bring into a space creates self-judgment in others, and it's like, damn man, I don't want to be doing that to people.
Yeah.
That
must be hard.
It is hard.
So
I just want to just relax.
Yeah. So what do you do? What do you do for that? Is there a medicine you can take, or is there a therapy, or is there what?
Yeah, it's a good question. So first of all, I'd never drink coffee or caffeine because nobody wants to see that. Second is I find that much like a lot of the things that people who accomplish a lot, they require that they have to get them scheduled. I do find that the discipline of scheduling is very important and valuable for me in my life. It's actually scheduling downtime. And when it's on my schedule, that's when I somehow have the psychological permission of, you can do it now. It was funny when I was working as I had a role as a chief marketing and communications officer for a company based in Cincinnati, and they grew fast. They grew from I think their valuation when we started was 60 million, and when I left, which is just over 2.5 years, no, not even 2.5 years later, they were valued at 2 billion, and that was a huge push and great for the kind of energy that I tend to have. But here's where it was. I definitely needed to rest, but the only time that I could find I was fully just like able to fall into a nap was literally while taxiing on the runways in an airplane. And this is because I figured this, I didn't know why this was the case, but man, I could conk out. And on that seat, I got whoever next to me, the plane's taking off, boom, I'm out. I figured out the reason for that was because this is the only time when I am legally not allowed to be on my computer.
Right.
Yep. And it was like, okay, can't do it now. And the body was like, thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so during the course of the day, and then you're always on, you're always doing something, you're always active.
Yeah.
How do you wind down at night?
How do I wind down at night? That actually seems to come pretty naturally, but I do have moments where I think about, what is tomorrow looking like? Have I gotten everything in order? And especially now that I'm running my own shop, I kind of, that weight is a little bit more intense than it used to be, but I like cooking dinner with my lady, enjoy a glass of wine. Last night we did a little escape game in a box. It was fun, but turned out to be enormously challenging. Just so. Oh yeah, we love escape rooms. We do escape rooms.
Yeah, I've done one of those.
Yeah, whenever we travel, but now these game companies have figured out how to create escape-like experiences that are more like table games. If that makes sense. They're kind of only like one-time use. Of course they would be, because an escape room would only be interesting ones.
Yeah. Right.
So, and then we play other games, other table games. I guess you would say that they are all still forms of doing, whether that's cooking or playing a game or whatever. but it just feels like more relaxed and connected doing. And that's an easier space for me to be in.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So you've told us about one instance where you had a setback.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other instances that ring true to you or make you think, that's probably another instance where we should talk about?
So I'd say yes and no, only because it's like I am just in this forever sort of okay to fail situation. I mean, I have the first recordings that I look at the first commercials. So I've done a lot of commercials for a lot of companies now. I look at my first commercials and I'm, kind of embarrassed about them. I'm like, man, I've learned a lot since then. And I look forward to, and I know I'm creating commercials like this month, next month, last month. And there is an amount of time that I now anticipate will go by before I look at those commercials and say, ooh, okay. Could have done that better, but that's good in my thinking. It doesn't mean I'm disappointed in myself. It doesn't mean that I feel like, oh, yeah, look, I failed there. Because every time that I look at past work and regard it as, well, there's clearly a lot of opportunities to have done that better. That just means that all I've done is learned more now, right? I have leveled up. I don't think you can level up without having a sense that things that you've done in the past aren't as good as what you can do now. So, and I coach my friends on this too, other people that I work with. If you're thinking about, let's say, creating a first like podcast or something, you have a recording that you want to put out there, something like LinkedIn Live or whatever. Don't wait to think you've got it figured out. I mean, wait till you think you've got it mostly figured out, but not totally figured out, because I've never found that feeling ever really shows up that I've got it totally figured out. It's not going to happen. I say, just go ahead and do the worst one you're ever going to do. People are like, what do you mean? Do the worst one I'm ever going to do? Well, the first one's going to be the worst one. You just got to get that out of the way. So I've done a lot of worsts, and I'm not really looking at them as failures so much as I am the first step that had to get to get to the second one, which is the second worst.
Yeah. I mean, that's hard. It's hard to let go or to do that.
Yes.
Right? For a lot of people.
It is. Yeah. I think that we do have this sense of, and I don't know if it's because of maybe we're paying attention to characters that we see in movies or TV shows, but this sense of readiness, or nowness, the feeling of now's the time. I just don't really find occurs in my life. So it's like, well, then I'll just have to be the decider of whenness rather than the waiter of nowness, and then you schedule that or whatever it's going to be. And then, okay, then this is when I'm doing it, and lean in. There's no way you can gain the lessons that are waiting for you on the other side of the first one without doing the first one.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that is such good advice. I don't think enough people realize that. It's taken me a long time to understand it as well. I mean, the podcast that I do, never would have thought I would have done this. And now it's been 2.5 years I've been doing this, and it's crazy.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. Makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
But and when I am doing it and I'm letting people, hear about other people that are out there and what they have to offer, guys like you, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. And when you stick to that, right? I mean, I've been surprised many times. I'm like, I just made a commitment because I wanted to have conversations, right? There's something that I would say I learned from Tim Ferriss's approach to his books, right? So he wrote Tools for Titans and Tribe of Mentors. I mean, even to say that he wrote them might not be accurate. He hosted the conversations that produced that content, and then he organized it, which is really cool. And Tim never put a hand up and said, I'm the expert. I know this. I'm going to create a book about this. He put a hand up and he said, I want to understand how people level themselves up. And I'm going to talk to people who I think are really good at it. So I think it's really important. I'm going to go on a journey. Who wants to come with me? And that's a very inviting way to get after that. So but I say, for my own experience, what happened was I made a commitment like that. I made a decision about an area that was fascinating to me. And I started having the conversations. And it wasn't because I was trying to find an audience. It was because I was trying to have a conversation. And then the audience just started showing up.
So what does leveling up mean to you?
I think the first thing about leveling up is to take time to decide, what are you aiming to be? Who do you want yourself to be in, you name the time frame. What's that person like? And I think about it across many dimensions. So I use this mind mapping exercise. I actually did this a couple of years back with Adrian. And it has to do with so many dimensions, right? It has to do with, what is the this being with your name, and that being with my name is Colt. What does Colt look like relative to community? What does Colt look like relative to fitness? What does Colt look like relative to hobby, to career, to income, to location of living, right? And you just consider dimensions within which you can sort of paint out this picture of your life. And where you find there's a delta between where you're at now and this vision that you have sort of articulated across all these dimensions on this map, that's where you were trying to go, right? And for me, the idea of gathering information from people who I know that have done this part well or that part well, I have this is a phrase that I've got from a great friend of mine, Sarah Armstrong. She talks about the personal board of directors. And this is guidance in her life, where she has people who, that she is in communication with, friends, colleagues, coworkers, etc., mentors, some of them, and they sort of play a role for her, each of them in a different capacity. Some of them to be people that she just needs to laugh with, right? Someone who she just knows 100% she's going to laugh her head off if she gets on the phone with this person. Someone who has guidance on investments and financial acumen, that type of thing. Someone who understands, just can really sit in it with you if you're in something like. So to have a sense of those people around you. So then that's step 2, right? Step 1, understanding the delta between where you are now and where you're trying to go. And step 2 is to make proactive outreach to the people who you see as heading in the right direction, or have the support elements that you think you're needing in order to move in those directions. And then 3, it's like, okay, so you've learned where you want to be, you've learned how to get there. But now let's make progress, right? Let's start moving in those directions.
So the support elements to get there. I think of the support team.
Yeah.
Is there other things that you would think of?
Yeah, I could think of other things on that. So, in this day and age, like we have, as individuals, we have access to everything. So let's say one of the things that was in your vision of life was a business that you're trying to start. Today, individuals have access to things that only billion-dollar corporations had access to 10 or 20 years ago. I mean, it's just incredible to me.
Yeah.
So if you had a concept and you needed to machine a prototype out of a block of metal, well, open up Google and search for CNC machining near me. And this just blows my mind, right? So you can find, rent by the hours, access to CNC machines that will carve that chunk of aluminum into whatever design that you had in mind. Boom. And you're holding it, physical object, from idea in your mind to physical object in your hand inside a day. Or maybe you don't have an ability to do a CAD design on the computer. Okay, well, that's out there too. A half a day of a CAD designer's time is now available to you through Fiverr or Upwork or any one of those worker marketplaces that are out there. If you need a graphic designer, that person's there. If you need capital, those people are there. If you need audience, look at what you're doing right here, right? I mean, we have access to everything that anyone needs to move anything forward. And it's like, okay, the last thing, and I learned this one recently, if you know that you have access to everything to move anything forward, and you're not where you think you should be at this time, then the thing that you're probably missing right now is accountability.
If you have where you want to go, and you know how to get there,
Mm-hmm.
that is missing, that
Yep.
link.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
accountability. Where do you get your accountability?
I mean, accountability is another thing that's available to us. There's coaches in every discipline. So you want to write a book? Well, maybe you know how to write a book, or you have your outline figured out and you need just a little bit of coaching on that. So there's coaching on how to get that done, and people who you can engage, who will set out the schedule for you, tell you what homework you need to do, give you guidance along the way. And there you go. If you know how to use every machine in the gym and you know how to show up, but you haven't made it happen, get yourself a gym coach, man. I mean, there's nothing that you could be seeking to do that doesn't have the tools and the people available to get you to that goal. There's just like nothing.
The only thing that separates a lot of people is the idea that human capital, the money, is separating them from that.
I do see that happens a lot. And what I would say is, so the personal board of directors idea never cost a dime in my life. And the way that I learned it from Sarah never cost her either. Although she does go on what she calls a roots and wings tour sometimes to visit that personal board of directors in her life. And I think that's a beautiful idea. And sure, that might cost something. But to gain access to your people, to your tribe, it is rewarding for many people who would be in your life to provide help. To be of help is a rewarding thing to be. And to give someone the reward of reaching out for help in that way is a gift. I see it as a gift when people ask of me in those ways. So that's not a cost issue. And if you have a vision for creating something and you have a passion for creating it, there's someone out there with money that wants to double, triple, quadruple, 10x that pile of cash and needs someone with a great idea and a lot of energy. There's always that connection point is always there. I told Adrian, like, just make sure that you don't put limits on what you're dreaming. And this example, we were walking, I pointed to a large building. I said, now, a building like that in a city like this is going to cost a lot of money. But if you had some idea like, it would be so cool to do in that building, it would just be amazing if, and then you laid out this concept for, wow, that would be, people would love that. And it's like, yeah, but I can't get that building without $20 million. Like, don't worry about that part. Somebody out there has $20 million and they're trying to turn it into $200 million. They just need somebody like you who has a really cool idea. And that was a cool idea, right? Like, there's not a limitation around really anything.
It's up here.
That's so up there, man. Totally right. Yeah. You are so right.
There's where the limitation is.
Totally agree.
So that leads us to our next question.
Yeah.
That is, how do you free your mind? How do you remove that limitation?
Maybe I would say baby steps. One is it kind of like no matter what role you're currently holding, the way I've approached every hired, like on staff, employed, that's what I want to call it, employed position, has always been like this. The work that I do, I have pursued with the goal to create a portfolio piece for myself, something like a career portfolio piece. This is what I'm going to do with this project. And I'm going to be able to certainly deliver for the organization that I'm working for, but I'm also always delivering for myself. And what that means is everything that I pursued, I had to, set a goal and put a vision around and seek to have a story to tell about it when I was done. And when you start to approach more and more of what you do with an intent to create a portfolio piece or a story that you could tell about the work that you're doing, you get this action and response experience of, I set a goal, I'm able to achieve a goal. I set a goal, I'm able to achieve a goal. And then once you've kind of built that like trust in your own capacity, The next thing to check on is where have I artificially limited what I think I could set as a goal that I can go after? And for me, that's been an exercise in, I'll use a metaphor here. Something that I really love doing is going into a hardware store and I'll walk every aisle. I need 2 things in this store. That means I need to be, and at most 2 aisles, but I'll still walk every aisle because I get ideas when I look at things. I go, you know what I could do with that? And you know what I could do with that? So that's the physical sort of version of it. But if you start looking online at what really is available to you, and going to a maker fair is another good example, but like, there are companies that would do what they call micro runs of garments. If you have a concept for some jacket that you wanted to create, there are companies that would, stamp out manufacturing runs in like unit counts of 20 or 12. Like you don't need to have $100,000 to get something just over the line. And we have access to all this stuff. So I think that once you get that mojo going of, yeah, I can set a goal and get there, then it's like, why don't you look around and see what you really could be doing?
Yeah. Nah, I love it. It's great, but we're already at the end of our time. Time with you goes so fast.
Well, dang it.
Yeah, we need to do this again. We need to do this again.
Totally, I'm down. You bet.
All right. Sounds good. Anything you want to leave our audience with today?
I mean, everything was said. I guess to sum it up is just check in on where you might have limited your own field of possibility, and believe in what you could be capable of. Where you find you're running into obstacles like, I don't have this, I'm missing this, I need to put a pause on it because I'm lacking X or Y or Z. It's all there, man. It's all there. Just commit to where you want to go, the destination that you're aiming to, and look for where you can backfill what you believe you may be lacking, because someone else wants to bring that to the equation.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Colt. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you go to the green room.
Yeah.
If you don't mind hanging out there for a little bit. And
Let's do it.
Right back.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. What another great show with Colt Briner. I love that guy. He's so cool. Anyway, we don't have a show coming up next week, but we have one coming up the week after that. I believe it's October, I want to say 8th, 9th, something like that. Anyway, so maybe it's not. Anyway, look for 2 weeks out. I still have another conversation. So thank you for being on. I appreciate you all so much. I appreciate you all. And if there's ever anything else that I can do for you, please don't hesitate to let me know. And as always, remember just to keep one eye on the road. Take care.